transition. Now, I don't say that to be disparaging. In fact, I love this customer. One of the easiest, nicest customers and best tippers I've ever waited on. And they were always a pleasure to serve. Never felt awkward serving them, and always was really grateful when they came in. So personally, I feel that in this society, because of the way these sexual perversions are perpetrated against women or against men, and these allegations of assault, it is too risky at this point to have transgenders using females' bathroom. I do not think that they should, if they don't identify as male, that they should be forced to use a male bathroom. We're going to have to create new bathrooms for this new classification of people. Transgender people, they might identify as female, but they were born anatomically for the most part, unless you experience some kind of strange genetic disorder, where you're a hermaphrodite, or you have higher levels of estrogen and testosterone in your body, which forces you. And this is, and I'd have to do more research on this topic. But there are there are some individuals who actually have the anatomy of both sexes. So where does that leave people like them? Yeah. Now, normally at birth they are intersex, and those people are actually classified as kind of like a third classification. So to say like those people don't exist is not true. I think transgender people probably fall under that, and they should have their own restroom. Either that, or we should make them move towards family bathrooms. Family bathrooms. We knock down the walls.
Are gross though.
It might be gross, but it might be gross, but it would get rid of the legal issues that we're facing and the discrimination issues.
Yeah, but then new issues would come up with like kids and shit, and then sexual predators touching the kids in those washrooms.
You could argue that, and that's a very accurate. I would say that's a very viable concern to have. But if kids are in the bathroom, usually they're under the supervision of an adult, and if a kid is using a bathroom alone, that usually means they're old enough to use it alone. If it was a family restroom, their parent could wait in the restroom with their child, and in that case, it seems more of a parental. If a child were to be sexually molested,
thing, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
If like the sexual predator like attacks the parents first to get to the kid.
You're in a public space, so I don't think you're going to be worrying about that. It's like there's not. I don't know of too many.
In the area, right?
Well, I don't know of too many restrooms that are out in some dark, secluded alleyway where there's not a lot of lighting and there's not a lot of people around. Where
like park restrooms, for example.
Park restroom. It's usually a public space, and in which case, if there's someone waiting in the bathroom, I think that would happen regardless or not if you had a group. Or what do you call it? A family restroom, regardless. So I don't think it would make any difference. So a sexual predator is going to prey on people regardless. Now you can do things to make it harder for them, and this becomes the issue of like what's the greater good. Now we can stop all this insane, just batshit crazy legal issues that seem to arise from these issues, by striking down this, no, you can't use this restroom, you have to use this restroom, knocking down the wall, making them all family restrooms. You'd solve the legal issue, you'd end the topic, the discussion on this discrimination bullshit, and people
can... you made co-ed washrooms?
Co-ed washrooms. Why? Okay, why not? Okay, here's the thing is though, is if we're gonna be treated as equals and seen as equals, if people really want...
we should start doing that through the washroom, though. I mean, the washroom is like a weird place to start with that whole thing.
Well, is it weird, or is it just because of the culture that we're in? Now, a lot of cultures...
the culture would reinforce the fact that it's weird. That's the problem. I mean, you can't change society. Society as a whole has to change together, so... just by one little thing like this wouldn't really make a change, you know?
That's true. You would have to do something that would... it would have to be a whole lot of individuals making an individual choice to do something together to start a change. But we can't just say, like, as a society is made up of individuals. So we can't say that Well, we just got to wait for society to change. No, we have to be the examples of change. We have to change ourselves. So if we don't do that ourselves, then we're never going to make progress. I personally don't feel like we'll make progress. Now, we were talking briefly, kind of like we touched on the issue of like co-ed. You were talking about washrooms. Are you talking about like bathhouses? Are you talking about showers or?
Well, I mean, showers, obviously, public showers only have pools and stuff, so I don't think that really applies unless you're speaking about pool areas, right?
Yeah. Now, I'm not trying to say that I want this to happen. What I'm saying is, if they want to end discrimination, that seems to be one of the easiest ways to do that. I understand that people don't want, like, if someone doesn't want their naked body to be seen, they are entitled to privacy, and they shouldn't. Does that mean they shouldn't be able to use a gym? And if they want to shower after a gym, they should be able to shower. Why not make individual stalls?
There
you go.
I guess so, yeah.
They can make individual stalls. They in a public restroom, they can do that. They like if you had a public restroom.
If we're talking about like the layout of like a washroom now. It would be more expensive to make multiple rooms and stalls for washrooms.
Okay, but what is the greater cost to society?
Well, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I guess that would be a good idea. It's just companies don't really give a shit about society. They want to make the money and stuff. So like,
and that's what it comes down to.
Actually making the washroom.
And that's and I think that's what it comes down to is people don't want to spend the money. Like we were talking about how earlier in the podcast we were talking about why it is that companies make certain decisions and making certain characters, targeting certain demographics, because like let's just say in comic books, you typically might have, let's just say hypothetically, you have more male readers. It would make sense to target those male readers because those are the ones supporting your product. So you're going to make a product that targets those people. It's a marketing standpoint, and you're in the business to making money. Yeah, it does. Like let's just say shaping a curb to make it wheelchair accessible takes a massive amount of money and architectural engineering.
A lot more money, exactly.
It does, but what is the greater cost to society? You have disabled people that are no longer being able to be mobile because they physically cannot access certain areas in their communities because it's not handicap accessible. Now, the same thing can be said for this gender argument. There are people that don't feel safe, and there are people that feel discriminated against. Why not give them individual stalls, and the people that want to use a urinal can use a urinal still? Put the little divider up, and they have that privacy. And if anybody, if you have a divider, some kind of divider that gives you some modicum of privacy, like somebody has to go out of their way to peep at you. And in that case, that person is preying on someone, and that person will be properly dealt with, assuming that you're in a public place, obviously, and this person is not going to attack you. And if this person attacks you, people that perpetrate these kind of crimes are going to do it regardless. It's the same. You could say let's just draw an analogy to the gun.
Sexual predators are humans too. They want to make sure they're safe when attacking, right? So.
Yeah, I guess so. But you can make this analogy the same, like let's just say gun regulation. This is another heated topic. As a lot of people say, like if you put more regulations on guns, you're going to prevent them from getting in the hands of criminals. Well, there have always been laws regulating the use of guns, but that doesn't stop criminals from buying things on the black market. Someone that's selling a bunch of shaved off ID numbers, pistols, out of the back of their trunk, they're not worried about laws. It doesn't influence them. They don't care. They got it from some other guy who got it from some other guy, and then they're selling it to you. So it becomes like, well, where do you draw the line? I don't know if I personally have the answer, or at least the ones that people want to hear. I think personally, if I had to give an opinion, I would say, look, if this is such an issue for the people of North Carolina, and it is a very big issue. The reason being is because companies are leaving North Carolina. There have been several companies saying, I think Boeing said was going to open a manufacturing plant in North Carolina. And then they said, we're not doing it because of the gender discrimination laws. Artie was actually talking to me about one of our community members. He was talking to me about this issue not a couple of weeks ago, and about how it's discriminatory and to classify people under these types of ways, and regulate the anatomical nature of a human being when they might not necessarily identify in such a way. It's a tricky situation. I think it's a lose-lose situation. You're going to have people getting upset no matter what you do. So it becomes the question of like, okay, well, how do we respect the needs, the wants, and the desires of the minority while acknowledging that the majority of people might feel this other opposing way? That is the balance of power that you have to ask. And that is a question that we've been dealing with, like in this, not just this country, but in the world since the dawn of time. How do the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and where do you draw the line? I don't know necessarily if we always have that answer, or if it's readily available. There's always someone that's going to get upset, but all we can do, like I said, in this case, I feel like the best thing that maybe the people of North Carolina could do would to make them family restrooms, install stalls. It will cost them more. Tax the people more. The people of North Carolina should be taxed more money to pay for the installments of these gender neutral.
Up a new issue of if people that are homophobic are willing to pay for transgenders, which they wouldn't be, so that would start riots.
Oh, they might not be willing to pay for someone's food stamps. The tough fucking shit. That's how it comes down to. I'm sorry that there's taxes and laws, and you need to ante up. If you don't want to pay that, then what do you have to do? You have to vote against it. That's why there's things called, you have ballots, and when you get those ballots in the mail, if you just throw them away and you don't vote, your voice isn't going heard. If you don't go to your town hall, if you don't write to your senator, if you don't get active, if you don't go protest, your voice isn't going to be heard. If you don't do some kind of social activity like we're doing right now, obviously people care about these issues because we see chat moving, and you're in here talking with me right now. So obviously it's an important issue, and we're seeing in a very real way why these issues are so important. And you have
Are you against the government, or
am I against the government? No, I am in favor of the decentralization of power. I don't feel like I don't feel like a body of government. And if you've studied government and the history of the way our nation has been run, looking at any Republican, Democrat, I don't think they've competently handled the management of this country at all. And why do I say that? No, not just Trump. That is just such an easy target to pick. Let's go to someone harder. Let's look at someone like FDR. Someone, a president who's held on a pedestal, right? There's someone who this man created social. A lot of people hated him because they felt he espoused some communist or socialistic policies, and he did. He created socialistic policies to deal with the Great Depression, to manage that by starting migrant farms and starting like studies into spending money on showing like how poverty. I had to do a project on art. And we were doing it on photography, and they were talking about during the Depression how artists were hired by the government to actually document the lives of these poor migrant families going across America so that he could campaign for his social issues. He's also a womanizer. He was a crippled, paraplegic, or not a paraplegic, but he was paralyzed from the waist down. But he had a mistress that he would meet with regularly, and cheated on his wife. And allegedly, his wife was having extramarital affairs with a female, and she was actually lesbian. So they were like a power couple. So there's a lot of there's someone like him who him.
Did you mention racism or
racism? No, I didn't mention racism with him at all.
Okay. I thought you mentioned racism. I heard that.
No,
so
no, I don't know much about his policies on race. Although, besides the fact that he didn't allow, I'm not sure, but during his tenure in office, blacks and people of other colors or minorities were not allowed to hold certain jobs in the armed forces. Also, we had the internment of an entire race of people within our community, within our country. We had our own concentration camps here in America. We threw a bunch of Japanese people in them because we felt like we could not trust them. Now, one could argue Pearl Harbor was bombed. It was necessary evil. But we denied, the fact remains, we denied a whole lot of American citizens their citizenship But and then we're getting way off topic here. But this is why I
did start with sexism.
But this is why I don't trust the centralization of power. They can't run the VA.
Why?
They can't run the VA. They can't run the armed forces. They can't run the budget at all. Social Security has been depleted. Healthcare is a joke. Our education